Remember, this exam is this upcoming Monday, June 1st. So what's the objective of the exam? Is the final oral exam, the final exam for this level. The objective is to evaluate your ability to describe life experiences. So you will talk about something that happened to you in the past, something that happened to you in the past, because it's a life experience. You cannot talk about the future if you don't have the experience. It has to be the past. And of course, to do that, you have to narrate. You have to narrate. Um, mute here. If you guys want to speak, you chat. Okay. I read you, Juan. So if you want to say something, Juan or Angel, use the chat because I don't want to have the noise in the video. So the idea is to narrate. Remember, when you narrate something, you usually narrate what? A story. So your oral exam is a story of your own life. So it's something really easy. But you need to be careful. You need to be careful. Why careful? Because you have to follow some steps in order for you to have a good presentation. If you just start talking, and you don't follow this, probably you say a lot of things, but you don't say what you're supposed to say for the exam, and then you have a bad score. So to continue with the objective here says, you will give the audience, in this case, the audience, it's only you and the teacher, or it could be you and the class. I will check if it's individually with me or if it's with all the class. I will confirm that later. And you will give the audience a clear understanding of something meaningful that happened in your life. So whatever you use as a topic, you can use any topic. It has to be a clear topic, something that we understand. So don't go with crazy, difficult topics using vocabulary that is so complicated. No, no, no. You have to use things that are easy to understand. Of course, you need to be careful with the aspects that we evaluate, for example, pronunciation, vocabulary. If you're talking about the beach, you need to use vocabulary about the beach and things like that. So um, here you have to be aware of that what you say, it has to be something meaningful. What is meaningful? Meaningful is that has a good significance in your life. Significance. It has a meaning. Okay, it has a meaning. When you say, how is this important to me? Oh, it's important because after this event in my life was different. So it could be something positive, it could be something negative. We recommend you to say something positive because sometimes you talk about negative aspects, and then, for example, when we give this exam there, present at WAPA, some students, they talk about people that die, friends that die, or accidents, and sometimes they have these memories fresh, and they start crying, and they cannot continue the exam. So that is not the idea. The idea is that you express something. I mean, if you want to say something like that, it's your decision, no problem. But if you lose the control of the exam or you start crying or whatever, it's your problem. Okay? So we usually recommend something meaningful, but something positive. It's easier to express that kind of stories. So, like I put here on green, you should organize your ideas. So today you could start writing the ideas, and if you have a question, you can ask me later or tomorrow. And then when you organize your ideas, they have to be in a sequence. They have to be in order. Which order I will show you in a moment. Now, when you start your story, you could start with elements like this. For example, one day I was la 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 la. Some time ago I was. It depends on your story. If you talk about story last year, you start last year. I remember I went to the cinema. La 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 la. Or if it's about something very old in the past, for example, when I was 12 years old, I remember my grandmother gave me la 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 and la 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 la. This oral exam is easy for you because you have practiced stories, making stories in groups. So you remember how to start, how to develop, and how to conclude a story. It's the same thing, but with specific order. Okay, so let's move forward to the next slide. And here you have the different things that are mandatory for the exam. So you have to describe a significant life experience and include the following. You have to include this. I'm going to put numbers in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Attention, please. You don't need to use the question. You need to say the answer in your exam. You don't need to say, oh, okay, so this is my story. Who was involved? Oh, in my story, my mother, no, you don't have to say who was involved. You say who was involved. For example, imagine it's a story of my life, and it's something that happened to me once at Megacentro, okay? Something that happened to me at Megacentro. So I could start. I remember that for example, last December, I remember last December, I went to Megacentro. Went, because it's the past of go. I cannot say I go. So, last December, I went to Megacentro with my mom, and my sister. With this information, with my mom and my sister, I am answering question number 1. Okay, I already explained who was involved. I don't need to say who was involved or my mother. No, I say the answer. Okay, you don't use these questions. You give the answers in your story. Okay, remember, for the people joining now, you are muted, but if you have to say something or if you have a question, you can use the chat and I will unmute you. I put it on mute to prevent the noise. Then in the next part, I have to say what happened. Okay, what happened? So I went with my mom and my sister to buy some things for the house to decorate for Christmas, because I'm talking about December, so for Christmas. Okay, so we entered Jumbo, and there was a man, okay, a man dressed like Santa Claus. This man was different from other men that I have seen before doing this job. He came near us and he told my sister, "Oh, oh, oh, Merry Christmas. What would you like to get for this December, for Christmas Day?" Then my sister didn't believe in Santa Claus, and she said, "No, you're very crazy. Continue with your life, man." And then 1 minute later, he took a rabbit out of his beard. I know I'm just creating the story. It's not real, but you know. So what I'm describing here, this is what happened. What happened on his beard? Remember, this is a beard, okay? On his beard, okay? So he took a rabbit. The rabbit come out. So I'm describing here what happened. Now, when did the event take place? Oh, I said it, December. Okay. Where did the events take place? Oh, I said it, Megacentro, in Jumbo. Why is this experience important in my life? Now, I need to describe more information about the experience, right? I need to say what happened then. Oh, my sister now was convinced that Santa Claus was real. And then she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Santa Claus. I will believe in you forever. And after this day, we'll believe in you forever." after this day, I promise you, I'm going to be a good girl with my father and my mother and blah, 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 blah. So why was this experience important in my life? Oh, this experience, I don't remember. I don't need to use the question. I say. So this experience is important in my life because after that, I remember my sister was a different person with my mother, with my father, with her boyfriend. Everything was happiness. My sister believed that the happiness was in the little details that we have, blah, 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 blah. And that's it. That's the oral exam. Some elements that can help you have a better story, because my story, was like, whatever. But if you want to select a good story, okay, some things that you could consider are here. Look, you will talk about positive, meaningful experience. Positive is recommended positive, because when it's negative, you feel sad and you can cry. And then if you cry, okay, you're sad. You can have 0 in the exam because you forget the ideas. So it's better to have a positive life experience. So this should be something that happened in your life, something personal, because when it's yours, if you forget one word, okay, it's easy to remember. But if it's invented, like this story that I'm inventing here, it's more difficult because sometimes you don't know what you are going to say after. But if it's real, all stories are good. Whatever the end of your story is, it's good because it's your story. You don't have to mention specific things like, oh, my story has to be perfect. Or, no. Whatever your story is. Now, your story needs to be meaningful. Meaningful. Look, it's in capital letter. It's in bold, in another color. Here, black, right? Meaningful. So that means that it has to be important and relevant, not just like this story that I'm inventing here. So your story should engage. What is engage? Connect. Your story should connect with the audience. So when you speak, you have to be convincing, not like some students that are like, oh, teacher, one day I went to and then, oh my God, very bad. You have to connect with your audience. So if your story is interesting, if you organize your ideas, you can have a good sequence in your story. So people will like what they hear. Okay, then here, what is a good story, or how can you transform a good story? Well, it's a story, it's a story that shows transformation or change. After this story, you are different. So 4 possible options that can help you select a good story in your life. An experience that changed you in general, an experience that helped you solve a difficult problem. Okay, let's say that you didn't have money, or you, for example, your story on how you entered to the immersion program, your story about a girlfriend you had, anything. So that help you solve a difficult problem. It could be a story connected to your family, anything you want to talk about. And number 3 here says a story that you thought, an experience that taught you something valuable. Remember, taught is the past of teach. A teacher teaches you, but in past, a teacher taught the class to you. So an experience can teach you something valuable, like a live experience that is rewarding. And another example of how to choose stories, an experience that help you make a difficult decision. For example, you have to decide which university you were going to start, and for that you have to take a decision, whatever. After you select your story, you make sure you read the rubrics. What are rubrics? I'm going to show you the rubrics in a moment. The rubrics are the things that qualify the points. For example, pronunciation is 5 points, but it's 5 points if you have this. If you only have this, it's 4 points. If you only have 1, it's 3 points, and so on. These are the rubrics. The rubrics is about evaluation. Last thing you need to know is the order of your story, okay? This is the order of your story. This you need to remember. So begin by telling the audience the background information. The background information is the additional information. Remember, for background information, it's usually convenient to use past progressive, because when you use past progressive, oh, for background information, if you remember the story that we did with teacher Emily's class together, then you had to write background information. Good stories that you had, by the way. And so then you need to, when with this extra information, people have the idea on what you're going to be talking about. Okay? Because if you start, oh, one day I visit this, finish. What is the idea of this story? Then the second should be the action or the event, like that started the story. Like, okay, this is you describing the story here. La 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 la. But here is the whoop of the story. All this information here is just additional to get to the point. So this is where the story starts, with the mambo of your story starts. For example, I remember one exam for one student that she was describing an experience at the metro. She went to the metro, she went to take the metro, and then before she entered the metro station, she had this sensation of diarrhea, of something she had eaten like 2 hours before that. So in this point, when she describes, so when I went downstairs, okay, that I passed my ticket, passing meter, to get to the metro, guess what happens? There, the sensation in my stomach was revolving all over. So I only felt that I was going to die. As you know, there are no restrooms in the metro. So la 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 la, and then she described the other parts of the story, the things that complement this action that started the story. And number 3, you have to be careful, okay, through the process. Like, you need to follow up these ideas in a way that connect to the final part of your story. So what you need to do when you change, for example, one idea and another idea and another idea, you need to use time phrases, for example. Then after that, so 5 minutes later, 1 month later, depending on your story. And also, don't forget, extremely important, the verb tenses. If it's the past progressive, oh, I was going. If it's the simple past, I went. If you don't use these expressions correctly, it's difficult to follow the sequence. At the end, here, you have to describe how the story ended, like what happened at the end and how it made an impact in your life. So this is exactly the same as this, as these numbers here, but now with more details. Okay, so minimum 2 minutes, maximum 4 minutes. You can have visuals. Visuals are, example, pictures or PowerPoint to help you, or any additional thing you want. Now, all these, the visuals, are optional. It's up to you. Okay, are optional because they don't have points. They don't have any points. But if you need it to complement your story, no problem, you can have it. Minimum 2 minutes, maximum 4 minutes. Now, before you ask me questions, I'm going to show you what is the rubric. See, these are the rubrics for the exam. So we're going to evaluate 5 aspects: the content, organization, grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. So notice, maximum in each category is 4 points, then 3, then 2, then 1. If you have this way, it's 4 points. But if you're missing something and it's here, 3 points, and so on. Every aspect of the rubric has some information that the other doesn't have. For example, content. Content is that you follow all I told you, the goals, like the objective of the oral exam. So here it says, clearly describes the people and settings. The people, like, oh, I was there with my family, my mom and my sister. You describe the people. And settings, the settings are the different things around, the settings of the story. So we were there in Megacentro, okay? And as we enter Jumbo, I'm describing the settings, the aspects that are around or related to my story, as well as the actions. The actions are the verbs, or events, giving specific interesting details and sharing why the story is personally meaningful. Like this part here has to do with the conclusion. So this story is meaningful in my life because after this, I learned that the most important is the family. La, 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 la. Oh, excellent, 4 points. Similar in organization. You cannot start with the conclusion and then give me the introduction. Oh, you're not seeing the screen. Hold on. Here I am. Okay, here. The rubrics. I thought you were seeing the screen, but you don't use the chat. Okay, good. So I was reading this one here. Okay. Now, organization, for example, introduces sufficient background information. Before the story, you need to say the background information. So I remember that day I woke up very early before I went to Megacentro, and my sister, she was wearing a red, beautiful dress. This is additional information. And all that, okay, you can read it here. Okay, I'm gonna send you this so you can have it, for you to know that if you have all the aspects, you could get up to 20 points. If you're missing some, well, you know, you will get 3, 2, 1, and then it'll be less points. The grammar, you need to speak in full sentences. For example, I listen what? I listen to music, I listen to my mother, okay? You need to use the accurate verb. Accurate is like the exact verb. If it's past, it's past. If it's future, it's future. Vocabulary, use the vocabulary for the range of content. If you have 90 to 100% of the vocabulary, perfect, 4 points. But if you're missing some percent and you are like from 80 to 90, then 3 points, and so on. Pronunciation, you don't sound like a robot, you speak naturally. Not reading, I know it's via Zoom, but you should not read. You should practice and then be ready for the exam. Enunciates properly using an adequate rate and volume. That is, like, you pronounce naturally, okay? For example, hello, my name is Miguel Perez, and today I'm going to, you don't need to go like Vladimir, no, but you cannot go like a total, hello, my name, none of that. Okay, so that's pretty much all you need to know about the exam.